This is Caring for Kids on News Talk 760 WJR, presented by the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation. And here's your host, President and CEO of the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation, Larry Burns.
Well, thanks, Mark, and hello, everyone, and welcome to Caring for Kids, where we discuss a variety of issues concerning the health and wellness of children locally, regionally, and nationally. Tonight, we're going to be joined by Lorron James, CEO of James Group International, Judge Linda Davis, and Dr. Thomas Forbes, co-director of cardiac catheterization at Children's Hospital of Michigan and assistant professor of pediatrics at Wayne State University. It's all coming up next on Caring for Kids, here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, News Talk 760 WJR.
It's Caring for Kids with Larry Burns.
Welcome back, everybody. Larry Burns here. Our first guest is in the studio, and it's Lorron James. Lorron attended Arizona State University, where he played college football and graduated with a bachelor's degree in marketing. He received his master's degree from Central Michigan University, my alma mater, in business administration. Mr. James was recently named the Chief Executive Officer of James Group International and is currently president of Magnolia Automotive Services and the supply chain management company TLX, both companies of James Group International. Lorron is also co-chair on the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation Leaders for Kids Board and has served in other community-based programs such as the United Way Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Michigan, and is the newest member of our Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation board. So, Lorron, welcome to Caring for Kids.
Thank you so much for having me today.
You do an awful lot.
I try. After listening to that, I kind of forgot about some of those things.
Yeah,
but,
and I congratulate you for a couple things. First and foremost, for your recent appointment as CEO of the James Group International.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Great company, and I know that your dad and your mom are very proud of you.
Yes, they are.
And I want to congratulate you and thank you for joining our Children's Hospital Michigan Foundation Board of Trustees.
It's my pleasure. It's been an honor to be a part of Leaders for Kids for the past few years and to help start that. And being a trustee has been a great experience so far.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to work with you and Peter Giannopoulos and others for the last year, and it's a real delight. So to take that energy and leadership and put it on our board now will just help us into the future. So thank you very much. So those that aren't familiar with the James Group International within the city of Detroit, can you tell our listeners a little bit about the efforts of the company?
Sure. We've been automotive suppliers for about 46 years. We do the global export consolidation operation for Ford Motor Company here in Detroit. We have a outlet shop business for General Motors in Plymouth and a supplier risk business for General Motors out in Romulus. For Toyota, we have a cross-dock facility just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and we put all the tires and wheels on the Toyota Corollas in North America down in Tupelo, Mississippi. We have a joint venture partnership with a company called Toyota Two-Show. They've actually been very instrumental in getting us more established inside of the Toyota supply base. We also have about 40 acres of property on the Detroit River that we're trying to reconcile and revitalize to become a major multimodal distribution hub to the world. As everyone knows, Detroit actually sits in a very unique area geographically in the Midwest, and I think that we can be a major transportation player moving forward. On the technology side, we have a piece of software called TLX. It gives our customers real-time visibility of where their material is in the supply chain. And we're seeing that when we started in our industry back in 1971, when my father started back in 1971, the need then was in trucking, and then it went into export, and now it's going from export into information technology specifically. So we're just looking to move with the times. There's been a little bit of shifting within our organization over the past several months, and I'm really looking forward to moving the company forward.
Yeah, well, that's an awful lot, and a great story about your company that your dad started and now passing on the CEO reins to you. So will you have to travel a lot more than you used to? Just wanted to...
Probably. I do a good amount of traveling domestically. I go to a lot of places that people usually don't know about. Charlestown, Indiana, Blue Springs, Mississippi, other places where plants are. Usually plants are in more rural areas of the country. Right. So I do a lot of domestic traveling there. But then we also do a lot of business meetings in Nagoya, Japan. I've been to Germany a few times, depending on where some of our conferences are. So it can really vary.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for you. I'm sure it'll go well. So let's talk a little bit about your journey back to Detroit. I mentioned that you went to college in Arizona.
I did.
I believe you graduated from Brother Rice here in the Detroit area and then went off to the sunny climes of Arizona. And then after your career there, after you graduated, played some football, and I know that you worked for the Diamondbacks. And so what brought you back to Detroit?
Well, being with the Diamondbacks was a great experience. I actually started working full-time with them before I graduated, and it gave me a real sense of how important community was. I was in community affairs and marketing there, and we did a lot of the player programs, a lot of the field building in the East Valley. Got a chance to be really close with some of the players like Tony Clark, Sean Green, Luis Gonzalez. Those guys, some of those guys played for the Tigers as well.
Right.
Damian
Tony
Easley,
Clark did. Yep.
Absolutely,
Yep.
Great experience. But when I visited here, my best friend Eric LaFata got married in early 2007, and everyone was asking me if I was going to come back home and run the family business. And my first thought was, absolutely not. I live in South Phoenix. It's great weather. I live with an old teammate of mine, and I work for the Diamondbacks. And my father had just won the 2007 Urban Wheel Award. And about after the 12th or 13th person had asked me if I was moving back, I said, well, maybe I need to think about this.
Okay.
And when I told my father that I was moving from Arizona back to Detroit, he looked at me and said, wow, are you sure you want to do this? So, and I said yes. So I realized that carrying on our family legacy and our tradition was something that I wanted to be a part of and move forward. But I did not know what I was walking into in the automotive industry in 2007, 8, and 9. If I'm sure everyone can remember what happened.
Right?
Absolutely. I definitely earned my stripes then, and that's how I kind of learned how to be how I am today.
Yeah, awesome. We're talking with Lorron James, who's the new CEO of the James Group International. And so you mentioned Leaders for Kids. Tell us a little bit about how that started and what you're most proud of in the development of that group.
Peter Giannopoulos and the late, great Derek Sarafa approached me several years ago to start this group. I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago now. We met in the 24 Grill at the Book Cadillac. I remember it like it was yesterday. And they told me that they wanted to form some group with Children's Hospital. And at the time, I was a little unsure, not really sure where they were going with it. But I believe I was probably one of the first couple people that they approached about it. That first year after we had our first summer recess event in Ferndale, we started to get a little bit more traction. Our first Cheers for Children event was a success. And after that first year, we really found that a lot of people wanted to be a part of what we were doing. We started recruiting a lot more talent, people who were pretty established in the Metro Detroit area to come along with our initiative. And I have to tell you, after being a part of the Hamtramck School-Based Health Center, that really kind of lit me up as far as where the funds that we raise go towards. And there's still a lot of people that migrate to Detroit who don't really know where to go for checkups, for dental cleaning, for any type of wellness. And what these two ladies were doing in Hamtramck High School with very little resources was amazing. So the fact that we were actually able to get them somewhere north of $100,000 to increase their overhead and some of their spending, I knew it meant an awful lot to them, and that's when I knew that we had something pretty special. Very
special. And so the board now is a little over 20 people that I think range ages maybe early 30s to mid 40s.
I'd probably say mid 20s to probably late 40s.
Yeah, so it's a great
wide
group.
Range.
And it is also something that our foundation board has embraced and is extremely grateful for not only your leadership, but bringing the message like Hamtramck Schools and others into the community. And you recently supported a MRI wrapping project at Children's Hospital of Michigan. Leaders for Kids recently started an endowment so that 10 years from now, that endowment I know is going to be in the millions. And so it assures that beyond us, that Leaders for Kids will have a presence. So I commend you, Peter, and so that is outstanding. So you're also involved, as I mentioned, in other organizations like the United Way and some others. And so what are your thoughts about impacting the community, serving children, and as still somebody who is young, coming back to his hometown after being away? So what are your thoughts about this community service for you and now and in the future?
Well, from our standpoint, I think when we move back, obviously when you're a part of a board, the number one reason why is to give back to the community. But the exposure that we as young professionals get of being around other executives around the city who also have similar interests is invaluable. For us to give back to people who are a little bit younger to us, children, is very, very important. Obviously, how children are shaped nowadays is very important to them being contributing members of society moving forward. We want to make sure that they have all the advantages possible. A lot of us on the board grew up in families of privilege. We've always had resources. We always had food on the table. We've always had good education and great role models and influences. But the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of kids, especially in this area, that have not. Right. We can't assume that everyone was raised and brought up the way that we were. And this is an actual direct way for us to be involved in these children's lives by saying, you do have a shot to make a difference in this community, and we want to make sure that they are around other positive influences. And if you can't give monetarily, then you can actually volunteer your time. You can help tutor. You can actually spend time with these kids who just need someone to care about them. So I really like how Leaders for Kids and the United Way Cabinet and a few other boards that I'm a part of actually gives you an opportunity to give more than just your money, but also your time, because I believe time is just as valuable.
Absolutely, and the mentoring part is extremely important for youngsters. Well, again, I look forward to working with you, not only as we move forward with Leaders for Kids and those events grow, but now that as you're a trustee of the foundation, look forward to working with you to keep building that board, to keep building our relevancy in the community and the state as the leading children's advocate organization. And I know with people like you, we're destined to be successful. So I also want to mention that your brother John is running for Senate.
He is. And
so I want to do a shout out to John James, who's a good man.
Absolutely. I think he's a good man, too. I think he's the right man for the job. And, people ask me, is it state Senate or U.S. Senate? And I always have to specify that it's U.S. Senate. Right. He goes... he dives in head first, and he's always successful at what he does. I went to Arizona State, and he went to West Point Military Academy, so that's pretty much the polar opposites of one another. So we've always worked pretty well together, and I think he's got a great plan, a great agenda. He's a brilliant person. I know I'm biased because I'm his brother, but listening to what he has to say makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. So Lorron James, thank you for what you do for the Children's Hospital Michigan Foundation, the community, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead.
Larry, thank you.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to hear from Judge Linda Davis from the 41st District Court when Caring for Kids continues here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR, presented by the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation.
Judge Linda Davis received her undergraduate bachelor's degree from Oakland University and her JD from Wayne State University. She is a former assistant prosecutor with the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office and is now going into her 18th year as the Michigan 41B Judicial District Court Judge. Judge Davis is the founder and president of Families Against Narcotics, otherwise known as FAN. Judge Davis has received several awards for her work, including honors from Care House, Girl Scouts USA, Macomb Community College, and the FBI. But most recently, Judge Davis received the Humanitarian of the Year Award in Macomb County. Very impressive. Linda Davis, welcome to Caring for Kids.
Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you and I have had a chance to meet a few times, and I've been so impressed with your passion and the things that you've done with FAN, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I thought we'd give our listeners a little bit of a background on you being a district court judge. and maybe as a judge, some of the things that you could reflect on or experience in the past year, and things that you're looking forward to in this brand new year.
Okay. Well, I'm honored to be a district court judge. I was appointed by the governor and then ran for election immediately after being appointed, and have not been challenged since that date. So for 18 years, I've pretty much been unchallenged for my seat, which is really an honor and shows that the public is supporting me being here, and also the attorneys that come in front of me and work here. I love being a district court judge. I never had a desire to go higher than this, mainly because district court judges are people judges. We look more at rehabilitation than we do punishment. And being a district court judge allows you to get very involved in your community and actually see people change because you're able to provide help rather than just punishment. A lot of the general public thinks that, throw them in jail and let's just deal with the problem that way. But unfortunately, most problems don't get resolved by sitting in jail. They take treatment, counseling, those kind of things. And in district court, you're usually dealing with offenders that this may just be their first time with the legal system. And while going to jail for a short stint might get their attention, you really don't accomplish much by incarcerating people for long periods of time.
Yes.
They usually come out worse than they went in.
Yeah, and I think that you only have to spend about 5 minutes with Judge Linda Davis to figure out that the passion and the fact that she cares about people makes her a great judge, and it's no surprise that no one's challenged you in 18 years.
Thank you, Larry.
Yep. Now, how was it transitioning from being a prosecutor to a district court judge?
I thought it would be a lot harder, and I think it would be if I was in circuit court, because that's more of a punishment kind of situation than it is a help situation. But transitioning from being a prosecutor into a district court judge, it's where I did most of my work, was a fairly easy transition. People laugh when I say this, but the biggest challenge for me was learning to write and talk at the same time. You have very large dockets, and you can't take a break to write everything that you're saying, and it all has to be recorded. So doing that simultaneously and not ignoring the person in front of you and making eye contact with them was a challenge. But other than that, the transition was very smooth. I think defense attorneys thought I was going to be very prosecutor-oriented, but my job is to be fair to both sides, and I try to balance that and do exactly that.
Excellent. Well, and you mentioned the lawyers in Macomb County. I think I mentioned that my high school classmate, Bob Vickery, is a long-standing attorney, and I saw him over the holidays, and he just thinks the world of you, by the way. So,
well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, so it was nice to see him again. And we met through Pete Lucido, who was on this show a month ago, and we met for us at the foundation to find out more about Families Against Narcotics, an organization that you started, that you're very involved in, and I want our listeners to hear more about that, if you don't mind.
Right. About 11 years ago, there were a number of things. I had a family member that was facing a very serious addiction and realized how little help there was to really help families navigate through the system. And so that was of great concern to me, because I figured if my being a judge, I couldn't find help, then the average person out there was going to have no chance at finding good, viable help for someone that they loved. So that was the beginning of my passion for this. But then in addition to that, we were seeing in court young people just coming through almost like daily, 10, 20, 30 of them sometimes, with theft crimes. Kids that had never done anything wrong, or young people that really had never been in trouble before. And I started asking questions like, what's going on here? I mean, you've been a good kid all your life. And surprisingly, they were very honest and said they had drug problems, and it ended up either being prescription drugs or heroin. And I lived next door to a police officer, and she was concerned because she was going to overdoses on a regular basis, and we had lost several young people in our school district to overdoses to heroin, which was just unheard of any other time that I've been practicing law. So there was a major concern, and we decided to do a town hall meeting and bring together people that were being affected to try to talk about the problem, where it was stemming from, and what we should do. And to be really honest with you, everybody was pretty ignorant about the problem at that time. Everyone in the room never thought in a million years this would happen in their family, and they were angry. They were mad at a system that seemed to not care how their children were being affected. So there was a lot of pointing of fingers. You know, it's the parents, it's the school, it's the police officers, it's the judges. And one of our young people said, we're not getting anywhere by pointing fingers at everybody. What are we going to do about this? And he suggested that we let young recovering addicts go into the schools and start talking. And it was a rough road getting started because Fraser High School agreed to do that. And no more did we go in and start talking about this problem and educating, and everybody started calling Fraser Heroin High.
Oh, dear.
And what was really sad about that is they were being proactive in educating their students and got dubbed as having a problem when we know now that every school equally, not only across Michigan, but across the United States is facing these exact same situations. So we started doing that, and the organization just grew exponentially from that, where we now have over 20 chapters in the state of Michigan. We have 29 support groups that meet within the state of Michigan where parents and their kids, either in recovery or still struggling, can come and get support and information on addiction and what to do about it and where to go and what to expect. We started numerous programs. This year we just launched a new program called Hope Not Handcuffs on February 1st, where we partnered with 33 police departments, and people who were struggling with addiction could walk into a police department, not get arrested, and be provided help. And since February, we have placed over 777 people into treatment.
Yeah. Wow, people who otherwise might wait till they get arrested or something.
Or die.
Unfortunately. And so, well, one of the things I also wanted to bring up is that you were recently did some exciting things in Lansing. I was watching the news one night, and there she was. Judge Linda Davis was right there. So can you tell our listeners about what happened in Lansing?
I chair the governor's Commission on Opiate Addiction and Prevention, and we had a number of bills that were being submitted that really regulate doctors, make it mandatory that they map every patient, which means that before they can prescribe something to you, they have to look to see what you're on and what you're taking, which was really an important piece of legislation because as a judge, I oftentimes see people come into my courtroom that are on 3 legitimate prescriptions that were written by doctors, but the combination of what they're on is actually deadly. And that happens because one doctor writes one script and another writes another script, and so it's providing education to the doctors and a tool so that they know where you're at. It also really identifies somebody that is drug seeking, and then doctors can provide help and offer support to them to get them into treatment. I can't imagine, I would never sentence somebody to jail without looking at what their full history was, what their background was, and then making a decision. I can't imagine a doctor that would not want that same information about a patient before he wrote a script that could be very addictive or create other challenges for that individual. So that was a piece of legislation that I was really involved with and wanted to see pass. But there was a package of legislation, and one of those actually dealt with educational programs at all levels of our schools, from grade school all the way up, because this is affecting so many young people, and a lot of young people get addicted from legitimate prescriptions that are written from either wisdom teeth being pulled or a sports injury, and that oftentimes is what starts an addiction.
Absolutely.
So we were there to sign those bills with the lieutenant governor, and I was asked to be the spokesperson for them.
You did a great job in helping our state become even more aware of how they can help and stop as much as we can about this. And you recently participated in our Children's Hospital Michigan Foundation's second quarterly legislative roundtable, where we're bringing elected officials, judges, others together, and we want to find out what's going on in your community. So our foundation, which is evolving into more of a community foundation for children, can be reactive, can be supportive. And so did you find that meeting to be helpful?
Absolutely, and I'm really pleased to see initiatives like that going on. I think one of the problems in our society is we operate in vacuums. We silo each other, and we don't work together as a community to resolve problems. And when you bring a community together and start brainstorming about solutions and what can be done, great things come out of that.
Absolutely. And so I don't miss the opportunity. How can our listeners find out more about FAN? How can they help you, or how could they seek help for themselves or a loved one?
Well, number one, we always are available to help anybody that's struggling with addiction, and you can go to hopenothandcuffs.com, and if you have fears about going into a police department, you can actually fill out a questionnaire online, and someone will call you within an hour.
Judge Davis, thank you very much for what you're doing, not only serving as judge, but also all the great work you're doing with Families Against Narcotics. And I look forward to you, and the foundation looks forward to working with you and your organization in 2018 and beyond to help one another. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure to always to speak with you.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon. And that was Linda Davis of the 41st B District Court. And coming up next, we're going to talk to Dr. Thomas Forbes. He's from Children's Hospital of Michigan and Wayne State University. And that's when Caring for Kids continues right here on the great voice of the Great Lakes. News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR. Presented by the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation. Once again, here's Larry Burns.
Dr. Thomas Forbes received his education and training from the Creighton University School of Medicine, Baylor College of Medicine, and fellowship in pediatric cardiology. In Northwestern University, a fellowship in interventional catheterization. Dr. Forbes is currently the co-director of the Cardiac Catheterization Laboratory and the assistant professor of pediatrics at Wayne State University. He specializes in pediatric cardiology at both the Children's Hospital of Michigan and Creighton Hospital Medical Center. Dr. Forbes is a fellow in the American College of Cardiology and a board member of the Michigan American College of Cardiology. Dr. Forbes, welcome to Caring for Kids.
Thank you very much for having me on.
We appreciate it. You're a very busy person, and to have somebody from the hospital, somebody that takes care of so many kids, it's what this show is all about. So thank you. Thank you very much. And so one of the things that I know people are always interested in, I spent 26 years at a medical school, and people always want to know when the passion to work in the medical field came about for you, and was it always about kids, or did that evolve as you sort of evolved?
Well, it really started when I was younger. I'm one of 10 children in my family.
Okay.
And my youngest brother has Treacher-Collins syndrome, which is the same disorder as it's in the movie Wonder.
Okay.
It's a craniofacial disorder that he doesn't have any ears, doesn't have a cheek or chin when he was born, and they're very susceptible to airway obstruction. And when he was born, the doctor thought that he'd be blind, deaf, and mute, and actually told my mother in the neonatal intensive care unit, I was there with her at the time, I was older at the time, that probably take him off the ventilator and that just let him be. Mm-hmm. And my mother was a champion for him, and she said, this child will, at the time there was 7 other brothers and sisters older than him, that will hopefully drive passion and empathy in our lives if he survives. And over the next 6 months, my mother kept him alive with a trach and oiled his eyes so he wouldn't go blind because he didn't have any chin. And he had 15 surgeries throughout his career up through high school. And he was just incredibly resilient. Mm-hmm. And through that experience for us, 8 out of 10 of us went into the medical profession.
8 out of 10.
And all of us have a strong passion to children in general.
Right.
And so that's primarily where my passion came from, is working with the kids and seeing how resilient he is. And now he's a pharmacist in Omaha. He's run on 5 continents marathons, and he's married and has 2 adopted children from China. And it's just an amazing life that he's been able to persevere and overcome all the difficulties. And I wanted a piece of that in my future as far as taking care of kids' specialty.
What a story. So, in reflecting on the many patients and families and cases that you've seen, what are some of the common threads within children's health, particularly at a world-class hospital like Children's Hospital of Michigan, that has really grabbed your attention over the years? Are there certain things that really make each and every day special for you?
Well, I think from my standpoint, just again from my experience with my family, is just the amazing resilience of children who are innocent and really didn't ask for the difficulties that they have, being able to overcome the issues that they are trying to deal with. Most of it can be life-threatening issues, and they still have a smile on their face. And so I've been to many children's hospitals, but Children's Hospital of Michigan in particular, with all the subspecialties that are represented there, you see a high acuity of children that are very sick chronically, and being a part of that and just seeing how they respond to it and the positive outlook they have in life, regardless of what circumstances have been dealt to them, has been an inspiration to me. And I think that's been a common thread for not just at Children's Hospital of Michigan, but really through a lot of the hospitals that I've been traveled around in the country that I dealt with in children.
Me too, from a layperson's perspective. And we're talking with Dr. Thomas Forbes, co-director of cardiac catheterization at Children's Hospital of Michigan, also assistant professor of pediatrics at Wayne State University. And so I worked at Children's Hospital from 1987 to 1990. We raised money for what is now known as the Carls Building. It was so long ago, the building's been renovated twice, which makes me feel old. And one of my good friends during that period of time, we developed a good friendship, was Bill Pinsky. I don't know if you knew or know Bill.
Very well.
And so since then, or maybe since your career, are there major steps in cardiology that have occurred in children that have made things much better for kids?
Yeah, so I started my interventional actually as an attending in 1997. Okay. So over the past 20 years, there's been a dramatic change in what we've done, mainly for treating cardiac lesions like holes in the upper chambers of the heart, atrial septal defects, and holes in the lower part of the heart, ventricular septal defects, with devices. So 85 to 90% are now all done through the cath lab.
Okay. Less
invasively. They go home the next day and they're really returned back to their normal activities.
Our Children's Hospital Michigan Foundation, this past year, we created our first ever focus areas of support. So we want to become more proactive, seeking out things to support. So we created these 5 focus areas, and one of them is cardiology, research and cardiology in general. And so I know that this is an important question for our foundation board and certainly for me, but what can our foundation do better to support you and your programs as we move forward?
Well, I'll tell you, the support that we've had already has been tremendous. We, through the foundation, have been able to start the largest pediatric interventional cardiology registry in the world, by far. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to do the things that I talked about before through that registry, and it's actually taken off in such a way that the FDA's come to us. One of the difficulties, and what the foundation has been helping us out with, and what I'd like to continue to ask for further support with, is that the FDA knows that developing devices in pediatrics is not really a money-making proposition for the company. Right. As opposed to adults, where they put in 100 to 1,000 times more devices in compared to pediatrics, the development of those devices is very difficult and very expensive in pediatrics for industry. So what the FDA came to us, because of the registry and through the help of the foundation, saying, we want to use you guys at Children's Hospital of Michigan to be the registry for developing devices in the country, and actually getting approval of devices. And so right now, what they asked us to do is take certain modules. And the procedures that we do in the cath lab in patients right now, approximately 90% of them are done. There's 7 different types of procedures, but 90% of them are covered by those 7 types of procedures. Closing holes, ballooning valves, whatnot. As it turns out, they want us to make modules. So right now we're in the process of making modules of each of those procedures, making it into our registry, and then industry comes to us through Children's Hospital of Michigan to then develop the device and get it approved in the United States.
Right.
So it's the first time the FDA ever approached an institution to do something like this,
Right.
and it's the first time ever that they've even considered using what we call outside registries. This is a registry run by physicians, of which Wayne State and Children's Hospital of Michigan is the primary operator of this registry in their history for getting devices developed and approved in the United States. So what I asked the foundation is continued support of these modules, which they would like to have done by July 1st of 2018 of this year.
Okay.
And then, and in doing so, then the modules would be set, and then the industry would come to us to get approved devices for that, and that's what we would. And that would change it. What we hope that it will do is it will make it slicker for devices being able to get approved in the United States, and the FDA hopes to knock it down from about 5 years as far as what the clinical trials are going down to around 1.5 to 2 years using these.
So rather it went from 15 or longer to 5.
5 now,
to
hopefully
shorter. So, well, we will do our very best to continue to support that and other things. So that's why we exist, and I thank you for what you're doing. I can't tell you, I've been back for a year, and how many people have talked about you, your work, and your passion for kids. So that should make you feel very good.
I'm very blessed by God to be able to work where I'm at and take care of the kids that I do.
Good. And we're grateful to you, Dr. Tom Forbes of Children's Hospital Michigan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. We'll be right back. I have some things going on about the foundation that you need to hear about, so don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
It's Caring for Kids with Larry Burns.
What a great show. Dr. Forbes is one of the superstars at Children's Hospital Michigan. Judge Davis is doing great things for people throughout the state of Michigan. And Lorron James is a rising star for our foundation and our community. So grateful they were all here. We have a couple events coming up that I wanted to mention. One is a big event on April 28th. It's a concert with Alexander Zonchuk. It's at Music Town, and so look for a lot of publicity on that. It's going to be a great concert, and we're going to have some VIP tickets available for $150. And then also on May 5th is our second annual Derby for Kids party, and that raises money for oncology programs at Children's Hospital of Michigan. That is going to take place this year at the Country Club of Detroit, so get your bow tie. And as you all know, we have a Children's Hospital of Michigan bow tie. Just need to go to our website and purchase yours. So thanks for listening, and I will see you next month.
Caring for Kids on WJR has been presented by the Children's Hospital of Michigan Foundation.